Either one of us wants to go back. I don't think that would happen again. It wouldn't happen. And Rick's dead. We can't go back there.
Viewers around the world know David Gilmour as the legendary guitarist of Pink Floyd, a man whose music helped define an entire generation. But behind the iconic riffs and sold-out arenas, there lies a quieter story, one not of fame or fortune, but of family. Few fans realize that Gilmour is the father of 8 children, each with a life path that has often been hidden away from the spotlight. While some chose a life of privacy, others found themselves drawn into the very world their father once dominated, and at least one son became the subject of controversy that made international headlines. It's a story that mixes fame, secrecy, rebellion, and reconciliation. And as we piece together what happened to each of David Gilmour's 8 children, you may be surprised at just how different their journeys have been. David Gilmour's family story begins with 2 marriages that shaped the direction of his personal life. His first marriage to Ginger in the 1970s brought him 4 children: Alice, Clare, Sara, and Matthew. Years later, his second marriage to writer and lyricist Polly Samson expanded the family even further, adding 4 more, though one of them, Charlie, was an adoption that would later bring both pride and public challenges. The full count stands at 8: Alice, Clare, Sara, and Matthew from his first union, and Charlie, Joe, Gabriel, and Romany from the second. What's striking is how different these children's lives have been. Some of them have worked hard to stay outside the glare of publicity, while others have stepped into creative careers that echo their father's legacy. And while the Gilmour household was never short of fame or resources, the private dynamics tell a more complex story, one where fame was often more of a burden than a blessing. Knowing their names is only the beginning, because the reality of what happened to them paints a much more dramatic picture. From his first marriage to Ginger, David Gilmour became the father of 4 children who grew up during Pink Floyd's peak years of global fame. Alice, the eldest, born in 1976, has lived almost entirely outside of public view, avoiding the media spotlight that often follows the children of celebrities. Clare, born 3 years later in 1979, followed a similar path to discretion, choosing privacy over publicity, a reminder that not every child of a rock legend wants a stage of their own. Sara, born in 1983, began showing signs of creativity in her professional choices, dabbling in fashion and styling, occasionally stepping closer to public eye but never fully embracing it. Then came Matthew in 1986, the youngest of the first 4, who showed an interest in music, carrying at least part of his father's legacy forward. While none of the first 4 children have caught headlines in the way their father once did, their quiet lives have become a sharp contrast to the fame that surrounded them growing up. Yet this first chapter of Gilmour's family history only set the stage for what came next, when a new marriage brought a new set of children, and with them, far more dramatic turns. David Gilmour's second marriage to novelist and lyricist Polly Samson opened a new chapter in his personal life, one that added another 4 children to his family. The eldest of the second set is Charlie, born in 1989 and adopted by Gilmour after Polly's previous relationship. Charlie's story would later dominate headlines for reasons both troubling and redemptive. Then came Joe, born in 1995, a child who has largely chosen to remain outside of public attention. His life marked by creative leanings, but little media exposure. Gabriel, born in 1997, has found his place closer to his father's world, taking part in musical projects and even collaborating in production roles that link back to the family legacy. The youngest, Romany, born in 2002, has already stepped into the spotlight with her own musical contributions, sometimes performing with her father and showing a clear interest in pursuing a career in the arts. Unlike the first 4 siblings, these younger children have been more visible, partly because of Polly Samson's active public career and partly due to their own involvement in music. But visibility brought with it new challenges, as one son in particular became a figure of controversy that shook the Gilmour family name. In 2024, David Gilmour surprised the music world not only by releasing his first solo album in years, Luck and Strange, but also by making it a true family affair. Instead of distancing his children from the pressures of fame, he invited them to participate directly in the project, turning the record into a collaboration that blended generations. His daughter, Romany, lent her voice to several tracks, creating a striking vocal pairing with her father. Gabriel contributed behind the scenes, shaping the sound and energy of the record, while Polly Samson herself co-wrote lyrics that reflected the intimate realities of family and legacy. Even Charlie, once the source of painful headlines, had a hand in lyrical contributions that added depth to the songs. Gilmour spoke openly about the experience, describing it as magical to work so closely with his children, not as a rock star, but as a father passing on a tradition. Yet beneath the harmony of that collaboration, he also revealed an underlying concern. He admitted to considering the sale of Pink Floyd's massive catalog, partly to avoid burdening his children with the weight of his legacy. This balance between embracing family and his music while also protecting them from the shadow of his fame paints a complex picture of a man trying to reconcile art, legacy, and fatherhood. Among David Gilmour's 8 children, none has drawn more media attention than his adopted son, Charlie. In 2011, Charlie's name was splashed across front pages after he was arrested during the London student protests. Accused of violent disorder, he was sentenced to prison, an event that cast a heavy shadow on the Gilmour family. At the time, headlines highlighted not only the incident itself, but also his famous surname, creating an uncomfortable spectacle for both father and son. Charlie later admitted that he had been heavily intoxicated and struggling with personal demons, a spiral that left him, in his own words, off his head on drugs. For David Gilmour, the ordeal was not only a test of family loyalty, but also a moment of public humiliation that no parent could easily endure. Yet what followed was a slow, deliberate process of rebuilding. Charlie turned to writing and eventually gained recognition as a journalist and author, finding a voice of his own outside of his father's shadow. Over the years, both David and Polly Samson described their relationship with Charlie as one built on deep bonds since childhood, and even through the darkest times, that connection remained intact. More recently, Charlie has contributed to his father's creative projects, offering lyrics and ideas that transformed their once fractured story into one of reconciliation. His journey from scandal to redemption remains perhaps the most dramatic and human tale among all of David Gilmour's children. When viewed together, the stories of David Gilmour's 8 children reveal more than just a list of names or family connections. They highlight the struggle of growing up in the shadow of one of rock's most legendary figures, a life where fame was both a gift and a burden. Some, like Alice and Clare, chose privacy, living lives far from the spotlight, and proving that anonymity can be a form of protection. Others, like Gabriel and Romany, leaned into creativity, carrying the family's musical DNA forward in new ways. And then there's Charlie, whose turbulent journey exposed a darker side of being tied to a famous surname, while also showcasing the possibility of redemption and growth. For David Gilmour himself, these varied paths seem to reflect his own attempt to balance legacy with freedom, wanting to pass on the magic of music without trapping his children in the weight of his history. His decision to bring them into Luck and Strange, while at the same time considering the sale of Pink Floyd's vast catalog, shows a man who is keenly aware of both the joy and the burden that legacy can bring. In the end, the Gilmour family narrative is not just about rock and roll, but about resilience, identity, and the universal challenge of raising children under extraordinary circumstances. In the end, the story of David Gilmour's 8 children is not a single thread, but a tapestry of contrasts, lives lived in silence and privacy alongside others marked by creativity, turbulence, and even scandal. From the quiet paths of Alice and Clare, to the artistic steps taken by Gabriel and Romany, to Charlie's dramatic fall and eventual redemption, each child has written a very different chapter. What unites them is the shadow and the light of a father whose music shaped generations. Gilmour himself has made it clear that he does not want his legacy to be a burden, which explains his willingness to involve his children in music while also considering moves to shield them from the crushing weight of inheritance. As a result, the question is no longer simply what happened to David Gilmour's 8 children, but what will happen next as they continue to carve out lives of their own. For fans of Pink Floyd and for those fascinated by the hidden stories behind fame, the Gilmour family reminds us that even in the world of legends, family remains a stage where the most human dramas unfold. And perhaps the most surprising truth is this: the legacy of David Gilmour may not only be his music, but the resilience and individuality of the children who carry his name.